Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Living and Loving with yours truly, singer, songwriter, country music recording artist, Monique McCall. And today I have a very special guest, a legend in the music business, singer, songwriter, world premiere producer, and vocal instructor for top artists such as Usher, the band Perry, Sugarland, Justin Bieber, and so many more. An accomplished author of 2 books and inducted into the Georgia Music Hall of Fame and nominated for a Grammy as a producer and voted as Billboard's Top 100 Women in the Music Business. Please welcome today with me, Jan Smith, also known as and dubbed by Usher himself, Mama Jan. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic.
Good,
It's a
good.
beautiful day to get out and live and love, isn't it?
It is a beautiful day in Atlanta, Georgia. I'll tell you that. We are very glad to see pretty weather here. Yep.
So where are you coming to us from? Are you in the House of Music, Mama's House of Music?
That's it. This is it. This is my brand new office, my brand new home office. Yep. In my studio. So yeah, it's Atlanta, GA.
I know, and you just reopened your studio. You had a whole refab, and I'm really excited to come check that out.
Yeah, it's going to be nice to have you here. We had a soft open for it this past weekend, and to allow the clients to see where we're at coming through. We're going to do the kind of the grand gala in November, and that's when I'm hoping you can come down and walk through with everybody else. But yeah, it's been a labor of love and just a labor of labor, to be honest with you, to have to move in the middle of a pandemic and rebuild my studio. But it was for a good reason. The Children's Health Care here in Atlanta bought the dirt where I was at, and that's my expansion, which is kind of cool because it'll be the #1 destination for children's health care in the world. So their hospital expansion kind of took over my building, and I had to relocate. So we were fortunate to find this space and glad to finally be in it.
Well, we appreciate you relocating for the children, and I know you put so much heart into where it is that you're located, and most especially in life and into music. And you started in the music business at a very young age. I know you had your first album at 15 years old. So take us back to where it all began.
Well, for me, it was growing up in Southern Baptist churches and singing, just always singing gospel music and being in little choirs and choruses and things like that in school. But I being born hearing harmonies naturally and hearing sound and color, it started there. It started there for me. I was my mother's noise-making child. I could never be quiet and constantly harmonizing with all kinds of things. Her Hoover vacuum cleaner, air conditioner, compressors, anything that made a sound, I would sing with that, and picked up instruments naturally and started playing ukulele when I was a kid, and then got my first guitar when I was 9 and started writing little songs. So from there, it just progressed into more, it kind of ballooned out into more of a singer-songwriter thing, which today with the kids that I work with and all the young artists, that's a real commonplace thing. But pre-Woodstock,
yes,
before you were born, it wasn't.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, but it wasn't a common thing. It wasn't a common thing for a kid to grow up and say, I'm going to be an artist. I'm going to be a musician. I want to do this music thing. So I was really more of an outlier than being a part of an in crowd. Now it's the cool thing, you're included because you're talented or a musician or whatever. But back then it was a little bit more of an odd man out kind of thing. So that's where it all started. Cut my first little recording at the age of 15, and then played in rock and roll bands. And now
was it different being a female artist as well back then?
I think it had its own challenges. The times were different, and things for women were different in the 60s and the 70s.
Yeah.
but then, Woodstock really did bring about changes as far as music and the music industry is concerned. I'm not saying that necessarily equaled or leveled the playing field for men and women, but it did open up some other opportunities, and it made it different. I never really felt particularly ostracized for being female. I felt more ostracized just for being creative and being a weirdo. So it really wasn't about male female. It was just because I was different, to be honest.
All artists are different, aren't we? We're different creatures.
We are. Yeah.
We beat to a different drum, but I think the thing that has not only your brilliant talent that sets you apart, but your entrepreneurial spirit.
Well, I think that grew out of needing to progress in what I was doing. As a musician, being self-employed, number one, means how am I going to feed my face and pay my bills and stuff.
Right.
But it's also, I guess, being a business owner and creating is kind of the same thing. I love the creative part of building a business and providing opportunity for other creatives. I'm surrounded by creatives all day. So I've created a business where I can really just be myself and be comfortable being surrounded by a lot of the same.
And you're so good at it. And you have had so many successes along the way. So you started at 15, and then you went on to record your first album. And then from there, you ended up getting a record deal, correct?
So not in the traditional sense. I did not sign a record deal with a major carrier. We actually created what they called a vanity label. It was an independent label. I was one of the artists on that label, and we also had other artists on the label. So that was kind of the first step into running a business within the music business. And I had a band, a very successful band.
Yes.
Been in a few successful bands. Playing rock and roll music was kind of my ilk, Southern rocker, and had a good run at that. But when I started helping other singers and working in studios and doing production, that's really when God, had honed my skill set for most of my life to be able to do what I'm doing now. And that's really to steward other voices in the studio and help other creatives in production, which I really, really love. And I'm not sorry for that. And I still perform and do a lot of writing and working in the studios and using my voice, but I'm not chasing that same brass ring that I was when I was younger. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not chasing that same rainbow, but your life is so colorful. You are surrounded by so many great artists, and you are working with some of the top artists in the industry. Now, as an artist, I always like to know, and I know you and I have been working together, which has changed my world exponentially. I mean, vocally and from a business perspective, and as a writer as well. But what is a common mistake that you see artists making as far as business-wise and vocally?
From a business perspective, I think that artists don't think of the creative process as being a business. And if you really don't embrace it that way, you can't be successful at it. You can be successful at writing songs and performing, but art and commerce at some point has to collide if you're going to make a living doing your craft. So being poor at business, a lot of artists are just not, they don't take that part seriously, or they're just not good at it. So I think that artists fail often in that they don't handle money well, they don't understand it, they don't know what their worth is, and that kind of begins the downward spiral for a lot of them not being able to support themselves. And then there's a lot of frustration and all the other stuff that goes along with that. As far as vocally, the place where a lot of artists fall short is in not recognizing the necessity for the upkeep on the physiology, that your voice is actually part of your body. And I mean, we know that, but we don't treat it the same way. People will go to the gym and they work out, but they don't think about conditioning their voices. And being a natural singer is one thing, but then putting it, through certain paces all day, every day if you want it to be consistently good and be stronger and be a great performer, you need to be a great vocal athlete too.
Mm-hmm. And it's like training. It's like being an athlete, and the processes that you've put me through are absolutely incredible. I've never had this kind of training in my life. And I do implore anyone who's a vocalist who's listening that they go to your website, jansmith.com, because I know that you offer tools there as well for people who aren't training with you that they can acquire.
Yeah, I mean, part of what we really, and when I say we, I want to be real clear that all of the work that goes on is not me by myself. I have a great staff, most of whom have been trained by me,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it's important, number one, for people to understand that they are, my handprint is in what we do, but my staff are really gifted in their own right, and each one of them works the same way that I do to ensure the excellence for that client.
Mm-hmm.
And the tools that we build are our own process by working hands-on with people,
Mm-hmm.
and meeting people where they are. I think that's what we do best is to really meet an artist where they are, to assess what their needs are, where they're at in the process, and then how do we fit into their journey, and what assets can we bring that helps them to be more excellent at what they do.
Yes, and it's always trying to strive for that excellence that I think anyone at any craft or any discipline that you're working toward is the hardest part. So you have had so many great successes along the way, and I know a lot of them are due to your persistence, your work ethic. But how much heart has gone into that? Where do you find the percentages to be between heart and work ethic when it comes to achievement?
Well, I mean, my heart is pretty big in loving people, and I think that if I had to say anything, how much heart goes into that, and how much can you love somebody? Uh, it if you don't love what you're doing, and if you don't love the people you're doing it with,
Mhm.
go do something else, because making money to me is kind of a byproduct of doing what I love.
Mhm.
And I know that not everybody has the opportunity to do something they really love. That a lot of people are working just to make a living, and I
Mhm.
understand that. I've done that too, by the way. But
Mhm.
I think it takes a lot of heart. It takes a lot of persistence to maintain and to build,
Mhm.
and it also takes good boundaries. So it's not just putting your heart out there, but also protecting your heart. Our industry, in particular, can be very difficult to navigate, and I think that people get hurt a lot because as a creative,
Mhm.
you're being judged for who you are. If,
Mhm.
if I were laying PVC pipe, or if I'm a plumber, nobody's really going to walk up and go, I think you could have done this a little this way or that way.
Right.
Everybody has an opinion about music,
Mhm.
and everybody has an opinion about your voice.
You
So
know the saying about opinions. I won't say it on air.
yeah, but it's a very personal thing. We are known by our voices. I believe that's how God knows us, and that's why I think your vocal cords are so magnificently specialized in the body too. I tell people this all the time, but there's no synthetic fiber on the planet Earth that medical science or technology has been able to come up with that can replace or duplicate the vocal cords in the human body as of today's date. So it's so unique, and it's so mysterious, and it's so precious that I think that people sing from their hearts,
Mhm.
and because of that, when someone has an opinion about that or makes a judgment, it can hurt you. So helping artists to know how to guard their hearts, and this is me speaking about me too, learning how to guard my heart was a very important thing, because artists, we bleed on stage. That's what we do.
Mhm.
We give everything, we give ourselves. And so to answer your question more directly, how much heart goes into it? A heck of a lot. And how much should that heart be protected? A heck of a lot.
Mhm. And would you say that probably falls across the board for anything in life? I think it's always good to guard your heart in what you're doing.
That's,
And
that's what the Bible says anyway.
Exactly. I had a great mentor once, and she put it to me this way because, I was going through some rocky roads and, I was approaching some big hurdles. And she said, Monique, you have to be careful of who you let into your theater since you're an artist, and you get to decide
Right.
who's coming into that theater, who's going to be backstage, who's going to be in the front row, and who's not even going to make it into the front door of the theater.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that is absolutely brilliant advice across the board for anyone.
Well, I think that what happens when people are not mindful of guarding their hearts, because we are, as human beings, we are porous. We take a lot in, and if the wrong information kind of gets seeded in there, it can create a lot of problems for people. Not only depression and anxiety and a lot of emotional issues, but it can create a lot of situations where people are more prone to drink and do a lot of masking of the real hurt or the real things that are going on in their hearts. And so staying pretty in tune with that and pretty pure about it, but also helping people, artists in particular, helping them to protect themselves in this industry and to know where reality stops and the rest of it, the smoke and mirrors begins, is really a very delicate balance.
It definitely is. It is a struggle of the heart. As an artist, I know, because you really do take the criticism to heart, and you take the positives to heart, and you take your audience to heart, because you are there. You're really putting your heart on the line. You're sharing your emotions with your fellow men and women, and I feel that's my ultimate goal as to why I do what I do, and I share the message of living and loving through music, is to move the emotions of as many of my fellow men and women as I can. And I take that seriously.
And what I do, um, when I'm coaching people, and I call it cleaning vocal toilets, but when I'm, when I'm working with artists, whether I'm in the studio recording and doing production, or if I'm doing coaching or tour prep, that kind of thing, my role is very critical. It has to be, because that's my job, is to go in and say, okay, where are you weak? Where's this picture not right? Where are the cracks in the mortar? And okay, now let's fix that. So my job is to assess weakness, and it's a critical role that I play. And if I don't do that with love, if I don't love the people I'm doing that with, it's pretty harsh. So I have to use my own emotion in that situation to really be tenderhearted to my artists and know them and understand them, so that I don't hurt them as I'm critiquing them, because it can be a very delicate thing. But helping them to learn how to trust me is part of the first piece of the game that I have to play, so that I can actually do my job and do really good work for them.
Yes, you have to choose your words wisely.
Yeah, I do. And it doesn't always come out right, but I think most of my artists over 30 something years have known that my motivation is because I love them and I love what I do, and I really truly want them to aspire to be excellent, and to help them attain that is my job, my role.
And the music business, I think, is among one of the toughest businesses in the world.
I agree. It's the music or entertainment in general is I think it's hard for people who are not in the industry. I mean, I've lived in it all my life, so I know it really well. But even at that, it's difficult to navigate because there are not a lot of boundaries, and it's kind of like the Wild Wild West. That's how I describe it. It's wide open trail, and here you can go and be successful however you want to be, and there's no one way. People become successful by trying different things. In the corporate world, if you do this, that's what happens, and then you can climb that ladder. In the entertainment industry, it doesn't work that way. If you do the same thing that somebody else did, you may not achieve the same success that they did, and who knows for why. It has to do with the fans. It has to do with people and the responsiveness that they have to whatever you're putting out there, and nobody can control that. We can't bottle it. We can't sell it. And if you could, everybody would be successful the same way. So it's a hard business to navigate, and it's also, I think, riddled with a lot of greed.
Mm-hmm.
Is part of the motivation, because it is a place where you can hit, serious pay dirt, and everybody thinks that they want that stardom kind of life. I want to be special. I want to be on a yacht. I want to walk the red carpets. But people really have no idea how much work actually goes into all of that. They see the 3 minutes, but they don't see the rest of it. And it's not as easy as people think to be in the public eye, to always be photographed. It's really not. It has a whole different thing that comes along with it. To always have people's expectations coming at you, that you somehow can save their child from cancer, or that you can, help them buy a house, or you're going to be the answer to their prayers. Like, that's a lot to put on a person. And so I tell people all the time, I don't create stars. I work with a lot of them. Some of them maintain where they're at, but I grow artists. That's what I do.
And you do a great job at it. So what do you attribute much of your success to? I know it's the hard work, but anything else that went into it?
Like I said, I think meeting people where they are, and really and loving people, and truly, I mean, delivering service. If I couldn't deliver, I wouldn't be in demand. So there's something about the fact that when I'm working with somebody, they're actually getting better, or it answers the question. When a label brings a young artist to me to develop them, obviously that's happening, or they wouldn't continue to pay me or seek me out for that. So if there's magic in that, it's in the delivery of services that are acceptable to other people, or what they're asking for. I think that we do that very well. And that's afforded us the opportunity to be in demand in the industry. And the truth of the matter is, Monique, I was just probably one of the first girls on the block who catered to rock and roll and R&B and rap singers. When I started doing what I'm doing, most of the instructional styles that were available were classic. It was all classical or gospel instruction, and that's all that was available. So when I catered to rock singers, and when I catered to R&B singers and pop singers and country singers and rappers, nobody was doing that at that time. Fast forward to today, there are more people who are doing it now, which is great. It opens up the marketplace, and it allows the availability of more contemporary instruction to be available to more artists. But the industry got to know me. They knew me from the inside, and from my work with, Rob Thomas and Matchbox 20, and the early days of Sugarland and Usher. Usher was the artist that kind of broke the color barrier for me as a Southern white woman who could, people didn't know that Mama Jan was a white girl. Or they didn't know that, how could a Southern white woman be, well versed in R&B or rap? Because I'm working with people. It's not a color thing. It's about the music and really helping the artist to excel. So that's really what put me on the map and put us in demand, and it's just grown from there. And like I said, fortunately, I have a great staff and people who have come along behind me who have assumed the same part for what they do in this house.
Well, I can imagine that put you on the map, but I can also say that from my experience that there's something else that I believe truly sets you apart. And that is that you are an ultimate communicator. And I'm sure you've heard this before. You have a way with words, and you know how to reach an artist. At least you've really reached me in so many ways, artistically and business-wise. And I know that's through your linguistic abilities, along with the training you have, along with the things that you've learned along the way. But how do you feel about that being part of the truth of
I think it's important. First of all, I love words. I'm a writer. That's where all it started for me was writing stories, writing songs,
Mm-hmm.
writing, and so communicating.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me as an artist, it was cathartic. When I was growing up, I was definitely the odd child in my home, in my family. I was the only girl. I was the youngest, but I was also an artist, and so it just made it, that much more obvious that I was.
Well, I was the odd child too, if that makes you feel any better. But maybe it's just because they were all odd and I was normal.
maybe. I just think it became my modus operandi. It became my writing was my way of really expressing myself when I couldn't really verbalize it, doing it in songs, and it also, I could always read between the lines of human interaction as an artist, as a young child. I heard things that weren't being said, and I felt that, and I knew I could discern circumstances and people's feelings even when they weren't saying something. So for me, writing was that tool that allowed me to say what I heard, what I experienced, what I saw, and my own truth, my reality. From there, God gave us a symphony. Just if you listen to the world, birds and all the air moving, just there's sound all around us. We just take it for granted.
Now, you said you were able to discern and see things other people couldn't see. So, is this discernment coming from heart or mind?
I don't know. I think it's probably a combination of both. I just have always been sensitive to sensitive. Like I said, I always heard what people didn't say.
Mm-hmm.
I always understood who people were by what they didn't tell me in a conversation or just in circumstances. And so words, like I said, became cathartic, and it became that vehicle to be able to communicate what I saw and felt and heard. So I think that being a good communicator came about as a result of that. The other part of it is, as a performer, I mean, I've been on stages since I was a child. So performing hones the craft of being able to understand that if I'm singing, I'm entertaining a group of people in a club or on a stage or in an arena. It's a conversation. And the more engaging I can be, the more they're going to listen to or buy into whatever I'm on stage to do. So communication, I think, is a pivotal thing for all artists to learn. Some people are more natural at it. I agree with you there. But I work with a lot of artists on that, like keeping your eyes open when you're performing. If you close your eyes, or if I'm looking down while I'm talking to you, looking over here, that's not very engaging with you. And little simple things like that helps artists begin to understand, oh, hey, this is really, not just about me. If it was just about me, I could stay home and play music and like my voice and I'm good. But once you step on a stage in front of other people, and I tell my artists this all the time, I don't care how you feel when you sing. I care how I feel when you sing. Your audience is there to hear you and to take something from you. So it's a communication exchange. Being a good communicator is incredibly powerful in this world, and also on the stage. If you're an artist, that is one of the main tools that you need to hone. Sharpen.
Yes, communicate verbally and musically.
Yep, exactly.
So you are a great communicator, and you've written 2 books. You're an accomplished author as well, among all your other accolades. Tell me a little bit about the 2 books you've written.
So I don't know how I wouldn't say that I'm a great author. I wrote the first book really for artists, for young artists. It's called So You Want to Sing Rock and Roll. And I did that for young artists to begin to understand, hey, this is what it means to set your gear up. Hey, this is what you might expect when you go into a club. It might be a good thing for you to be nice to the sound guy, because they can actually
Yeah.
mess you up.
Exactly. Sound is key.
Yeah. This is some gear these are some names in the industry of
Mm.
gear that's really good or tried and true. This is the way that you might, have. So it was really just kind of a basic instructional
Mhm.
handbook, if you will, with a warm-up CD for young artists who were just starting out, and especially rock and roll artists, because they weren't really accustomed to hearing things like, "Oh, warm up my voice." Are you kidding? So that's why I wrote the first one, and I did that with my dear friend Ginger Schlanger, who is truly a writer. That's her ilk. So she helped me to edit through that whole process and learn a lot about editing and writing a book. The other book that is currently on the market is a book called Run the Other Way, which is really more of a personal story of God's redemption in my life, and
Mhm.
vignettes of just my own cathartically working through a very difficult time in my life, and a breakup, and also dealing with my spirituality in that, and
Mhm.
I had how far away from God I had moved in my own progression, and and God's redemption of me in that. So that's what Run the Other Way is about. And I have a third book that I'm working on that is really more of a narrative about what we're talking about, my vocal instruction and my career, and have some really cool stories from artists that I've worked with, and some quotes from them that I'm really excited about. And
Do you have a title reveal, or that's?
I think I'm going to call it One Voice at a Time. That feels like something that kind of keeps coming back around. I
Mhm.
always tell people I'm saving the world one voice at a time, or changing the world one voice at a time. So one voice at a time might be what I go with, I think.
Well, I think we're all here to change the world, one voice at a time, and it is so important to tailor your words.
Yeah. Well, um, I think that it's going to be a fun project. I've got some of it written. I've got an
Mhm.
idea for it, but I'm going to be writing the vignettes and the stories around some of the artists that I've worked with that are better known, and then um, putting vocal anecdotes and
Mhm.
things in there that are a part of the instruction that are relevant to those stories. So I hope it'll be interesting. I think it will be.
It's going to be really interesting. Anything from you is interesting. So you have had so many great achievements. What do you consider to be the pinnacle of your career?
Wow. Whew. Really, right now, being where I'm at right now. I mean,
Mhm.
uh, building this new facility, and kind of kind of pushing it forward.
Mhm.
I mean, awards and recognition and certifications and things like
Mhm.
that are really exciting. I remember the first, multi-platinum record I got with Match
Yeah.
2020. That was a benchmark kind of moment.
Mhm.
I remember, working with Usher on Confessions. I remember, going on the Justin Bieber tour, working with Shania Twain, and I,
Mhm.
I mean, and there are lots of, Dwayne Johnson being called in on the movie set to work with him, Liam Neeson coming in to work with me. I mean, there's so much of that that's kind of my life, that,
Mhm.
and I'm not unrespectful of it. It's just that that's really what I do.
Mhm.
Going to the Grammy.
Led you to where you are today.
Well, yeah, and it's just part of the work. Being
Mhm.
at the Grammys, being at the Country Music Awards, being at the Billboard Awards, working with Nicki Minaj, being backstage with Carlos Santana, and it's like it's part of what I do,
Mhm.
and I don't take that lightly. I'm not saying that. Again, I'm not being disrespectful of it, but it is the course of who I am and what I do. So there are a lot of those moments, like standing backstage at the Grammys or underneath the stage before Justin Bieber walked out to perform for the first time in his life. Those are like head banging kind of moments for me.
Mhm.
But the stuff that I'm most proud of is watching any client of mine has never, like I'm going tonight to hear one of my young singer-songwriters who's never headlined her own show. She's doing her own show for the first time.
Wow, exciting.
She's 16 years old. And so it's amazing.
Mm.
And that's a proud moment for her.
Mhm.
Watching somebody see themselves on an album cover for the first time, being in the car with an artist the first time they heard their voice on the radio. That kind of stuff is just like, it changes people's lives, you know? So the other part of it is in my life, I mean, I'm taking care of my 92-year-old mother right now.
Mhm.
I'm proudest of that
Mhm.
because it's a grueling process, and yet it has taught me so much about the woman and the character of my mother
Mhm.
that has changed my life. And it's humbled me, and it's just changed me. So I'm very, very proud. I'm proud of my mother, but I'm also proud to be her daughter. And so things like that, it's not about the big hoo-ha moments, you know. Sometimes
Mhm.
something as simple as a client the other day hit me up on Instagram. This is somebody I worked with probably 10 years ago. She said, hey, I don't know if you remember me. And of course I do, when they tell me who they are. And she said, you know, I was struggling with drinking pretty hard back then, and you pulled me aside and had one of those kind of meetings with me. And she said, I want you to know that changed my life for the good. And I've been sober for 9 years now, and I'm married and have a family. That's the kind of stuff that makes me just like go, wow.
That's what hits home, and it truly is about, changing lives and helping others. And that's what we're here to do, whether, it's through music, through other professions. But ultimately, I personally feel in my life that, I've seen and felt the most beautiful times were when I made a difference in someone else's life. So I truly know that's what I'm here to do.
And I think, honestly, Monique, I think that's what we're all here to do.
Yes.
I believe that, the frustration that happens with people is when they're not fulfilling that, when they're not doing that. I think those moments when you recognize the greater value, like not just to you or that person, but like this is a mankind kind of thing. It's on a spiritual level. For me, it's very much a God thing that we are here to be of service to each other, to love other people, and to really to make that connection and to make that change. That's what we're here to do.
To live and love.
There it is.
Hence the title of the podcast.
Living and loving.
So you're out living and loving today. So what's next for you, Mama Jan?
Being in the studio more now that we're open. Now that we sort of kind of open, we don't really know what's going to happen with the rest of this whole COVID pandemic, whatever. I look very forward to having people back in and being able to work in person. I mean, virtual is great. It affords me the opportunity to work with people that are in different states and in different countries. And I've always done that, but wow, have I really missed the personal, one-on-one interaction and, being able to hug people. And we're very, hey, I want to get up in your face. And so
hugs are healing. The hug store is always open at my house.
Yeah. That and more production. I love creating music with other artists and watching them thrive. So just more of the same, to be honest. I always tell people, this is where you'll find me, and until they throw dirt on me, I'm going to be doing this.
Well, good for you. Such a fantastic life and so much ahead for you. And I can't wait to get out there and record some vocals with you and give you a super big hug, because we've never met in person.
That's what's next. That's what down to the studio. That would be great.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that. And So I wanted to ask you where, if I wanted to find your books, where can I get my hands on those?
I think Run the Other Way. Well, my website, jansmith.com, has most of our product. We have a store, and then there's another separate link for Run the Other Way because it's really not necessarily a music-related product, but we do have that. It's all on my website. I think you can go to runtheotherway.com and find that book, but most of the stuff, the merch and all, is on my website.
Fantastic. Well, I'll be getting my hands on your two books, and I'm looking forward to the next one coming out. So I know that you're running off to another big meeting. So I thank you so much for joining me today. But before I let you go, I always ask all of my guests one question.
Okay.
And that question is, what is the one song that speaks to your heart and sums up the essence of your being?
Amazing Grace. How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. God's redemption in my life, and for lots of reasons, has been the place where everything has fallen down around, the place where I have found the greatest peace, the place where I know who I am and how I'm loved most, and is the greatest strength and fortress that I know. So God's amazing grace, truly amazing, and living in that every day and understanding that more is what will take me out of this world.
And where is God for you?
God is all around us all the time, but God is love. God is love. That's one of the first things that the Bible tells us, is that God is love. And so for me, understanding who I am and the love that I came into this world with is God. And there's a whole lot more to that, mind you. I mean, I think that Jesus was and is the perfect example of showing us what true love is about. And part of that is in being willing to sacrifice yourself for someone else, not in a martyr kind of mindset, but out of love and out of caring and giving, to the point to where, would you die for me? Would you? I mean, that's when the rubber meets the road, it comes down to those questions. How much do you really love? How much can you really love? I believe that God so loved us that he literally came to earth to meet us in human form, to give us an example and to show us this is what love is. So that's what love is to me.
So lead with love.
No doubt. Live with it, leave it behind. You go, I mean, yes.
Thank you so much, Mama Jan.
My
Such
pleasure.
a gift to have you on today. Everyone, you can check out Mama J at jansmith.com. You can find her books there. You can find so many vocal tips and vocal training that you can download. You can reach out to her, I'm sure, somewhere through her website. Is there
Instagram, Mama Jan Music everywhere.
Yes, and she has fantastic videos. So if you are an artist or a vocalist and you want to know and hear more from Mama J about how it's done by a legend in the music business, check her out. And thank you again. My name is Monique McCall, a country music singer, songwriter, recording artist. I'm here every other Thursday at 4 p.m. on all the platforms. So like Mama Jan says, communication is key. Get out, lead with love, because that's what makes the difference. Love you all. Again, another great episode of Living and Loving. Have a blessed day and big hugs for everyone. Bye.
You take me there.